Welcome to GFC 303. We're playing World of Warcraft in side-by-side mode in 4K. We're going to talk a little bit about 2D to 3D conversion today. I'm going to show you some things here. I've got some news real quick. I did update my GPU, so I got rid of the GTX 1660 Ti. I picked up an RTX 2080 Ti. I know a lot of people might be wondering why would I be getting an older graphics card. But the 2080 Ti is actually very powerful. It's actually on par with the RTX 3070. It is fully compatible with 3D Vision, so all those Helix Mod 3D Vision fixes that are on the 3D Fix Manager will work perfectly fine with it, all the way up to, I believe it's driver version 450, although the preferred driver is 425. So I want to talk a little bit about 2D to 3D conversion. What it was when NVIDIA first created it 10 plus years ago, what it is now, and what people were doing in between. I want to show you when I talk about how the Helix Mod site, the guys on that website were working on their fixes to try to correct certain rendering issues, depth issues, shaders, shadows, and things like that. I'm going to show you that really quickly and what that actually means. So here, as you can see, I have my character, and he's not really casting much of a shadow, is he? Right? It's just a little circle right there, right? Unfortunately, these shadows, rendering issues, depth issues were corrected actually on the regen Geo drivers about 2 months ago. But since Cataclysm, there was a change. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but it broke the fix when it came to the shadows. Everything else looks fantastic. By the way, look at this game. Is this not incredible? This is one of the most beautiful games you can play. One of the most beautiful games. I keep saying that word, I know. It is absolutely one of the most incredible games you can play in 3D. It renders so well, especially vanilla WoW, because back then, before all the crazy updates and graphical updates that were coming out, you know, the game is only 5.9 gigabytes compared to what it is right now, which is what, it was over 40 gigs now, I believe. I think with the HD texture pack. So it's huge difference, you know, leaps and bounds. This game runs fantastic. My GTX 1660 Ti, which I believe is like $150, $200 graphics card, could play this game in 4K. Now that I have a higher end graphics card, I can push more out of it. But anyways, we're gonna get back to the shadows. So what I'm gonna show you here, this is what I am talking about. This is what the 3D drivers were doing, the 3D fixes that you would get, the mods that you would download from, you know, Helix Mod, or if you would go to pick it up off the 3D Fix Manager, which would go and pick it up off of Helix Mod's website anyways. So here we're going to go to the shadows. So originally I could have the shadows all the way up to high, and it looked fantastic. But now when I go to, let's say, good, for instance, boom, you can see what happens there, okay? So all the shadows are rendering. Unfortunately, they're at the wrong depth, okay? And what the guys over in the 3D fixing community were doing is they were going in, manually identifying and singling out those shaders, and then it would isolate that into a separate folder, right? And you can do this actually yourself with the Geo-11 drivers. There is a tutorial on their website. Heck, you can even ask ChatGPT. I asked ChatGPT, and I was able to isolate the shadow, the exact shader, but I'm not good enough to be able to fix it. I'm still very novice when it comes to this kind of stuff. But what they were doing was isolating each shader, texture, whatever it was that wasn't rendering correctly in three-dimensional space, isolating it, going into the file and tweaking its XY axis and being able to reposition it perfectly in three-dimensional space. So when the shaders are not done correctly, this is what you're seeing. When they are fixed, you get a seamless 3D experience. Everything is correct. It's all at the correct depth, and it looks fantastic. It's really truly is a phenomenal experience playing games, especially games like Warcraft in 3D. I'm playing on a 47-inch TV on a LG 6700 AU, and it looks incredible. It really does when everything is fixed. So in order to avoid these issues, we're going to bring it back down to low, okay? And then boom, it goes away. Okay, and so I mean, it's not the end of the world. You can still play the game like this. It still looks fantastic. I think everybody who plays World of Warcraft in 3D is obviously, we're all going to be hoping for a shader fix to get that problem solved. I do have some videos up on my YouTube channel that do show the fix. Unfortunately, they were all in tab mode, and when I was doing all that filming, I really thought that the Samsung Galaxy 3D and the Acer Predator Spatial Labs would offer a tab mode, and the reason being is because for interlaced monitors, which is this is an interlaced, it's a progressive interlaced monitor, and essentially what that does is when it's sending the image to the monitor, it actually has to have the resolution. So when you're in side-by-side mode, it's having the horizontal resolution. So you go from 1920 all the way down to 960. So that's a massive resolution dip. And although you do maintain your vertical resolution, which is 1080p, vice versa from that, if you're going to be going to tab mode, you're maintaining your 1920, but you're losing your vertical at 1080, and you're dropping down to 540. So you're at 1920 by 540, essentially. So you're maintaining close to 80% of the visual quality, and so it's very close to true 4K experience. So I didn't realize that the Samsung Galaxy wasn't going to do a tab mode. So now that I know that, I'll be making my videos in side-by-side mode. I'm going to try to tweak the Warcraft files to make sure that I can upgrade and upscale the image so we can get a better image quality. Unfortunately, these are all going to be in 1080p for now. But I have one more thing to show you in regarding the fixes. Okay, so originally, with the regen fixes, we would have the water was rendered correctly, which is fantastic. So I'd set it all the way up to high, right? And I mean, for the most part, it doesn't look like it doesn't look great, right? But I mean, you could still, if you really wanted, if you really liked the way that it looked, I guess you could play it like this. But you can see how everything's off right now. Okay, so there's a little bit of hazing and stuff all around the edges of the water. It doesn't look that good. Okay. I'm trying to candy coat it here, but yeah. So you can see here that the water reflections, the geometry was off. So now if we go down just a little bit lower, okay, we're going to go down to good, and look, it clears up a little bit, right? So now the hazing around the outside edges of the water isn't that bad, but the shadow reflections inside the water are rendered incorrectly and at the wrong depth. So even though, and also if you see that, you can see that that mirroring there, that's actually a reflection that is supposed to be coming off of the water, but because it's at the wrong depth, it looks like it's side by side view, right? So in two-dimensional space, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference, but in three-dimensional space, you're able to position things, right? So that's at, was that high settings down? Okay, good settings. Now we're going to go down to fair settings. So you can see as you go down in the settings, right, you're using less geometry. There's less 3D rendering and less shadows. So that means that there's typically less things that are going to be incorrect because there's less things on, being rendered in three-dimensional space. So now this looks pretty perfect, doesn't it? Right? Like that looks fantastic. So if you wanted to, yeah, absolutely, you could play the game like this. But what the guys over at the Helix Mod website were doing, and a few other guys that were doing this, I guess, outside of that, who did it for fun, passion projects, they were going in on their free time, manually isolating each shader, right, singling it out, sending it to another file. You would copy it. This is through the Geo drivers, copying it to another file, going into that file, and then manually adjusting the X and Y axis depth and positioning of each shader. So you're either going to pull it into the screen or you're going to pull it out to the screen, and that's how they would fix things. So that's how you got really true 3D, or I guess I think it's on the Acer Predator. I think they call it Ultra 3D. I'm not sure. There's three different settings, which is like there's 3D, and then I think it's high 3D or something like that, and then Ultra 3D. So basically anything below Ultra is going to be a 2D to 3D conversion. probably a really good 2D to 3D conversion, because they're now pulling from the frame buffer much faster, more accurately, and with artificial intelligence being involved, they're able to position objects adjacent from each other in three-dimensional space at correct depths and positioning. Okay, and that's huge. Back when 3D Vision first came out and they attempted to do the 2D to 3D conversion, what was happening was the technology hadn't caught up to where it is right now. I'm talking processor power, artificial intelligence being involved. So it pulled from the frame buffer, but it wasn't able to correctly isolate each object and be able to position it correctly from the other objects, from one another, because it didn't have the information about where objects should be from one another, how they should be adjacent from one another, and the depth. Okay, this is like when they were converting 2D movies to 3D movies. What they did was they actually got in touch with the people who were filming the movies, so that way they could figure out basically the distance from objects from one another in those movies, isolate each of those singular frames, pull them out, and then reposition them at a different spatial XY axis, right? So basically that's how they did it for the movies. The 3D Vision kind of does the same thing. It captures it in layers, right? 1 layer, 2 layer, 3 layers. And so what it does, and then it stretches that layer out, and then it tries to work out basically where objects should be adjacent from each other in three-dimensional space. But now that we have artificial intelligence, and the technology is starting to advance, and we're seeing the incredible possibilities with AI and what it's able to do, and how it's able to look at a scene, analyze what it'll be able to analyze the furthest point on the screen, and then it'll be able to analyze the closest, and then it'll be able to work out in three-dimensional space optically how things should appear adjacent from each other and positioned from each other to give it the proper depth. And because again it's pulling from the frame buffer, it's doing it before the image is actually being sent to your screen. So it's all happening in the background, just sort of like how 2D to 3D conversion was happening. So it is getting better. It is progressing. It's going in the right direction. And I can see that in 4, 5, or even 6 years from now, I wouldn't be surprised if we even stop with the fixes altogether and we just do 2D to 3D conversion, because artificial intelligence will be able to very quickly correct the positioning of things in three-dimensional space very, very, very fast, and even possibly even be able to isolate each layer, each texture, each shader, and maybe even allow you to be able to go in and position it, where you want it to be. So maybe let's say, to give you an example about what I mean. So let's say I pull up my HUD here. Okay, so yes, you could, using the Geo drivers, isolate the HUD, and if you wanted to, you could go in, isolate the HUD, put it into another folder, go into that folder, find the XY, change the depths, and the HUD could go into the screen, or it could go out from the screen. It's not entirely complicated. It sounds like it is, but it really isn't. It's a trial and error thing. Trust me. Just go to ChatGPT if you have ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT. It'll help you along. I'm a novice when it comes to the fixing of these shaders and stuff, but I'm still going to give it a try because I'm extremely passionate about 3D and I really want to have the best experience. But anyways, I digress. So what you could do technically is you could tell the artificial intelligence and say, hey, click on this HUD. Hey, I really like this HUD, but you know what? I don't really like the fact that it's at screen depth. I would kind of prefer to go a little bit further into the screen. And then you could say, hey, you know what? Put it in, minus 5, minus 20, minus 30. Can you do me a favor? I want you to cycle between from 0 to minus 50 in intervals of 5, and when I say stop, I want you to stop. And then it could maybe manually go through it back and forth until you're, oh wow, stop right there. Maybe you're at minus 20, so it's very much further in. Who knows, maybe even, for instance, you may not like your chat at screen depth, but you like everything else at screen depth. Maybe you want to have your chat appear like it's hovering all the way inside your screen, like you're looking up and it's somewhere up here in the corner. Sure, no problem. With artificial intelligence, with it being properly integrated and it understanding optically, visually, where things need to appear from one another correctly, right? You could click on this little chat bar here and say, hey, you know what? Make it -100, bring it all the way in, and zoop. It could always look like you're running around, and up in the top hand corner you've got a little box here where everyone's talking, right? Whatever, right? I'm just giving you an example. So it's a work in progress. It's come, I believe, a long way. I'm glad to see that people are enjoying the 2D to 3D conversion. That means we're on the right path. That's a really good sign. It really, really is. My job as a 3D content creator is to provide the best quality 3D videos in side-by-side mode. Now it's going to be side-by-side mode, unless you have an LG TV or 3D TV where it does tab, which I highly recommend. If you do, go back and check out some of my other Warcraft videos. It shows some of the earlier videos. Prior to regen, the shadows weren't fixed, and then after regen, the shadows were fixed, so you can tell the difference. You can see the difference between what it looks like with shadows rendering correctly and with them not. Yeah, I just lost my train of thought there. But yeah, we're coming a long way with the 2D to 3D conversion, and I think that it's going to get to a point where I think we're going to be able to get rid of the fixes, completely, right? And so, like I was saying before, my job is I want to create high quality 4K content so that people who do have a Samsung Odyssey 3D or an Acer Predator Spatial Labs glasses free 3D monitor, they're going to be able to see what a game looks like when everything is correct. What I think Acer would call Ultra 3D, or essentially it's somebody has gone through taken the time painstakingly to go through every shader, isolate every shader, and then manually adjust it and put it into correct depth. And when you do that, you get essentially this experience, right? And is that not absolutely incredible? I want to say it's beautiful, but I'm not going to say it's beautiful. We all know it is. I'm not going to keep saying that word, but truly, it is one of the most immersive and fascinating experiences. And I can't wait until I can finally get this monitor, this TV, in front of the public's eyes, so that they can see it themselves. I want people to see the possibility of what it could be to have a completely, fully corrected game. No issues, right? In Warcraft, I really don't mind. It's, to me personally, it's really not a big deal if whether or not I have, high liquid settings, fair liquid settings. To me, I could barely tell the difference between high and fair, right? I know that there's some extra, what do they call it, reflective surfaces and things like that. And yes, there are some, other issues here. You can see there are some issues. The shaders, right? The shaders aren't the shadows aren't rendering at the correct depth there. So it goes into a different layer, I think. Or maybe it's not even the shaders. Maybe it's actually just the the reflections off the trickle of water off the surface of the water. Maybe it's that's being rendered incorrectly. But really, to me, I like the classic look. So, I'm going low anyways. This is how it was so long ago, all the way back in 2004. In December, I think it was, when I first saw my cousin playing the game. And then 2005, January, I started playing the game. So a very, very long time ago. This is what I remember. This is what I like, and I'm going to keep it that way. So, but to each his own. You can play the games in whatever way you want to. Hopefully, the issues that are there will be addressed. I know that certain things cannot be fixed, and that's another thing. Certain things cannot be fixed, and so please bear with me on this. I am still a novice. I'm still figuring it out. So there's a difference between vertex shader and pixel shader. One is tied to an object in a different way, and its position in three-dimensional space is the way it's positioned is different than how regular shaders are. So sometimes when there's a conversion, so from my understanding, there has been some sort of a change between the shadows, how they used to be, to, being a typical shader to, I believe, a vertex shader. Okay, so from my understanding, or a pixel shader. And so Geo-11 keeps on saying that to me, and saying what ChatGPT said keeps on saying to me that the shader that I identified is now pixel shader. So I cannot manually address it. But I could be completely wrong about this. I'm a novice. I'm still figuring it out. But these guys would go in, isolate it, and fix it. Now, if we had artificial intelligence, okay, what it would do is it would be able to look and see for itself. Say, whoa, that doesn't look right. That's completely at the wrong depth. Let's fix that. Boom, just like that. It would probably do it. It wouldn't even ask you. It would just do it for you, right? Because it would be able to analyze the image, right? So if you send a picture, to give an example of ChatGPT, so I asked ChatGPT if it could find me a USB 3.0 PCIe Express, mini PCI Express internal card, so I could hook up a few extra USB ports to the back of my computer. And it sent back saying, yeah, this one would be a great one to pick. Oh, by the way, I just noticed that you're going to have to use one of your SATA power ports to be able to power it up from the inside. It's not going to be dependent on just the PCI port. I'm like, really? So I looked at the pictures, like, holy moly, it actually saw that. It can tell what it's looking at. And that's the direction that AI is going to continue to evolve in. And I think that, using AI for 2D to 3D conversion is very smart. I think it's going to yield some incredible results. People are going to have very unique experiences. They're going to be able to play their game in 3D the way that they want to see it. Like, for instance, like I said before with the HUD, well, you don't like this map there? No problem. Put it all the way inside, make it minus 50, minus 100, bring it all the way down to the mountains if you want to, wherever you want, right? Well, however the way it is that you want. Maybe you don't like having, players' names rendered in three-dimensional space above their head. Sure, no problem. Maybe you don't want Duratar showing up there like it just did on screen depth. Maybe have it closer in. You'd probably be able to get to a point where you'd be able to talk to the AI, right? The AI conversion, right? So this thing right here, see how it's named. Maybe you might not want that there. Maybe you might decide, you know what? Let's not put it right above the NPC's, the NPC's head. Put it off here in the corner. Put it right here in the corner. Or you know what? When I click on it over here, have the name pop up right there or over to the side. These are some of the things that AI is going to be able to do, because we're technically doing that right now, but we're doing it manually, right? So they're going in, 3D enthusiasts and people who are really passionate, the guys over at the Helix Mod site, people who are doing it on their free time, who have learned how to isolate shaders, they're going through the painstaking task of going through all these things individually, finding these shaders, isolating them, and putting them at the correct depth. So we're doing that right now. The difference with AI is that AI is gonna, instead of us manually doing it, we're just gonna say, hey, do you know when it just said Duratar there? Can you go in, find that shader, find that texture, and put it, -5. I want it just a little bit inside the screen. So the point I'm trying to make here is that, yes, the 2D to 3D conversion stuff back in the day was not very good. It was using a sort of layering technique, and it was sort of guesstimating based off of where your main character was, where objects should be from adjacent from you. They were pulling from the frame buffer, was great, but now that you have artificial intelligence involved, it's going to take things truly, literally to the next level. And it's just going to get better and better and better. And I think that we could all look forward to, a seamless, and it's not just going to be video games. It's going to be movies too. Okay, it's going to be movies as well, right? So what I think they should do, personally, in my opinion, and to each his own, I think they should go back. I think directors, producers, anyone who is in Hollywood should go back to their original movies, and maybe not right now, because 3D is just starting to make a comeback now. You know, the glasses-free technology, when people start to realize, oh, wow, glass is free, like, people were interested in 3D. They felt it was gimmicky. People didn't like wearing glasses, especially people that wore glasses. People that wear glasses don't like wearing glasses over their glasses. And so that made it a little bit immersive breaking for some people. It, you know, deterred them from getting involved in technology, and they went their separate ways. And it kind of died off. There was this big 3D hate trend. I'm not going to lie. I don't know what three-dimensional Crest toothpaste is going to do. I don't know if brushing my teeth in 3D, what that means or not. But I mean, it went really far. Okay, 3D was like the gimmicky big word, buzzword, you know, whatever you want to call it. You know, the Midas touch word. And so, I mean, I remember buying 3D Crest. And, oh wow, yeah, I bought it as a joke. Oh, I'm going to brush my teeth in 3D. You know, that kind of stuff, right? So it was taken a little bit too far, and people that didn't really like 3D and just wanted the regular 2D content, it was getting on their nerves a little bit. And so I understand and I respect the pushback. No judgments. I get it totally. I was there as soon as I thought I saw the 3D toothpaste. I was like, cool. So am I not brushing my teeth in 3D right now? I don't know what's going on. Right? Anyways. Okay, so when things start to pick up again, and the glasses-free 3D technology starts to make its way into our living rooms. Yes, you could put your Samsung Odyssey, you know, glasses-free 3D monitor, you know, in your living room if you wanted to. 27 inches. It's, I think, in 4K. Watching it up close, perfect, right? Absolutely great experience. But if you want the whole family thing, you want to put it in your living room. You want a 47, 57. You know, people are getting TVs that are like 85 inches now, right? An 85-inch glasses-free 3D TV would be absolutely epic. Would be absolutely epic. When things start to get to that point, what I wanted Hollywood to do, this is what I want them to do. Okay, this is my own personal wish that I think that they should consider doing. When it gets to the point where the technology's in the living room, it's glasses-free. There's 85-inch televisions. It's 4K left eye, 4K right eye. So 7640 by 3620, I think it is. Don't quote me on that. Something like that. So really high resolution, right? True 4K. You're seeing your image at whatever 100 or 240 hertz or whatever they're going to be when that starts to happen. I want directors to go back to their babies, go back to their gems, go back to their movies. You know, the ones that they put all that hard work and dedication in, you know, all their blood, sweat, and tears in. And then I want them to take it to artificial intelligence and ask AI, because as it progresses and as Spatial Labs artificial intelligence progresses, Acer Predator's artificial intelligence progresses. Actually, I think Acer is the Spatial Lab, and I think Samsung's is using their own technology. As the 2D to 3D conversion starts to get better and better, we're probably going to start to see video editing software and high-level video editing software start to reincorporate 3D back into the software again. I remember PowerDirector actually implemented 3D into their softwares. You could actually see the video in 3D, edit it in 3D, and then they cut it out. About a year or two after it came out, because it was so niche at the time, right? But as soon as people realize, like, whoa, are you telling me I don't have to wear my glasses over my glasses anymore? Wow, that's fantastic. You know, you mean I could just walk into the room and sit down and it's just going to work? Great, I'm on board. It's 4K, both left and right eye. It's 165 hertz or 240 hertz or whatever it's going to be. Sold, right? I mean, it's completely fixed. There's no issues, no shader issues, no anomalies. Everything's correct at the right depth. Count me in. That's perfect. And it's 2D to 3D conversion, so I don't need to buy the top-end GPU in order to do it. The artificial intelligence is able to do it in the background for me. Boom, count me in, right? When all that happens, and it will, because 3D is the future. And you want to know how I know 3D is the future? I want you to go out and buy a pirate eye patch, put that on and walk around for a day, and then you'll realize, oh yeah, I've been living my life in 3D ever since I was born. You know, not trying to be facetious here, but realistically, we are living in a 3D. We are stereoscopic. We have two eyeballs. That's why we're able to see in 3D, okay? And so the natural progression to our entertainment will eventually evolve to that as well, which it is already, right? The experience that we're seeing inside the movies and video games, we want to feel as if they are a part of our life. The closer to our reality it gets, the more immersive it gets, the more enjoyable the experience is, the more lifelike it gets, the more it feels like you're in that experience. You know, for horror movies, it completely amplifies it when you really see, when you see an alien running towards you and it's in three-dimensional space and it looks like it's going to come out of your friggin' TV, because it literally does for a second there. That is some cool, scary stuff. And I want these directors, producers, whoever owns the right to these movies, want them to go back, redo Jurassic Park. Okay, I have Jurassic Park in 3D, and it was manually converted. Okay, so the good thing with that conversion and what made it, I'm not gonna knock it, but I'm gonna say it's okay. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's not the greatest. It's okay, and the reason why it's okay is because, and only okay, is because it is 3D, but somebody had to go in and manually isolate each frame and separate objects from one another and then reposition it. Okay? And so that takes a lot of time. It's extremely tedious. And to be honest with you, it's not very accurate. What happens is, what you're doing is you're basically creating a series of flat surfaces and giving each flat surface depth. Okay, that's essentially what you're doing. You're giving a bunch of flat surfaces depth, and if you do enough of them, it will somewhat, sort of, kind of feel like it's a true 3D experience. But your mind is really good at detecting things that don't look right, and right away, the second you start watching it, it's like, okay, I know what this is. They're not able to get the intricacies down. They're not able to go in, and because when video games are made, most video games, not all video games, when they're making the game, they're actually positioning things in three-dimensional space. So all the hard work of positioning things is already done. Typically, it's just the shaders and the reflections and certain lighting stuff and shadows may need to be tweaked and things like that, and that's what gets fixed. But the meat and potatoes of the game is rendered in three-dimensional space. They're making the game in 3D space, although they may not be looking at it in VR. But that's also why it is that some shaders are rendered at screen depth, right? And so, for instance, to give an example, where I was over with the water, looking into the water there, you could see the haloing, the mirroring, right? That's supposed to be the shimmer of your reflection off the surface of the water. Now in 2D, if you were looking at that, it would appear to you that it was on the surface of the water. But what happened is they tied that shimmering to your character's depth. So they linked the two. So it appears in three-dimensional space. When you're watching in 3D, it appears like it's jumping out towards your character and not actually laying over the surface of the water, mirroring your reflection. Okay? Having artificial intelligence go in, and all these tiny little things, oops, sorry guys, I know it's a little intense. All these tiny little details and angles, right? So right here, if you look at this image right here, so if you were going back, 10 years ago, doing the 2D to 3D conversion manually with your movies, you would do them in layers, in sections, right? Layers and in sections, and each layer you would have a little bit further of depth from each object. See, it being rendered fully in 3D, you don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. Every aspect, every point of this object is completely correctly rendered in three-dimensional space, which gives you a true 3D experience. It's not layers. It's not objects isolated in each scene, right? So for instance, how they were doing it in the movies is, so if I was to do this section here, right? So this crate over here, this crate over here is coming out a little bit further than this crate over here, right? And so, but it's a little bit behind this one, and it's a little bit further in front of this one here. So what you would do is you would freeze the frame, you would isolate each corner of this, and then because you'd want it to appear that it was further ahead than this one over here, you would pull it forward a bit, isolate this one, make it go in a little bit, and then you would capture that frame. And then that would be, and you would do that for the left and the right side. And that's how they did it. It was in layers. And so it was a series of objects that were flat surfaces rendered in 3D. So when you have artificial intelligence involved, going to 2D to 3D, it can analyze every single nick and cranny. And so it can tell exactly where things are supposed to be in three-dimensional space at every single point, at every single resolution point, pixel point. In fact, it's going to know where things are and how far in and how far out each pixel or shader pixel is supposed to be, to give you a true 100% three-dimensional 3D experience. And what I want is, I want directors, movie producers, whoever it may be, to keep an eye on the 2D to 3D conversion, okay? And eventually watch as it starts to evolve into this incredible, really in-depth, getting right into the core of what it is that each image is supposed to look like in 3D, and aligning everything correctly, and making a truly 3D experience. So you see here how you have all these different people, and they're all at different depths, right? And as they move in and out, they're going in and out at different depths. Well, how the movies did it is it would just isolate each image, right? And that was it. And then it would put a vertex line on it, or sorry, a directional vertex line to where so if the image is walking towards you, it could hold its one position at A, and then they would drop a B point. And so as the video was playing and the frame was moving, that isolated frame and layer that it isolated out, object or person that would be walking towards you, it would make it look as if it was sort of enlarging, and therefore creating more depth and more pop out towards you, right? But again, it would be a flat surface, a series of flat surfaces rendered in 3D. The new current 2D to 3D conversion is doing a much more sophisticated approach. It is pulling from the frame buffer, just like 3D Vision, their 2D to 3D conversion did. But it's doing it in a much more sophisticated way, because the artificial intelligence is able to work out where things are supposed to be positioned from each other in three-dimensional space. Now, it may not be able to take, every single point in three-dimensional space to give you a true 3D experience like this, what you're seeing right now. But as it's evolving, and as the AI starts to learn how to analyze the data, analyze the shaders, analyze the textures, where everything is in 3D space, because everything will be, right, especially for video games, it will be rendered in most cases, because most games, when they're being made, are rendered in true three-dimensional space, and be able to put things where they're supposed to be. And then on top of that, they're going to be able to not isolate sections, but do entire renders of things in three-dimensional space. Like, so you see how when I come up here, okay, so you see how here, the side of this post here, this horn that they've roped to the side here. So you can see that it's kind of popping out just a little bit here. There, right about there. Is that screen depth? Oh, what's screen depth? That's pretty close. There we go. That's pretty close to screen depth, okay? So you can see as you go down the horn here, as you get closer to where it joins up to the post, you can see that it's slowly going into the screen, right? And that's because everything is rendered correctly in three-dimensional space. When they made the game and they made the objects three-dimensional, and the Geo drivers and the 3D Vision drivers know where everything is. The 2D to 3D conversion is going to get there. So we'll progress from a series of layers to being able to do this, being able to see the very point of this horn and go all the way down and gradually create the depth in each object in every angle. So it is an exciting technology. It is a work in progress. If you are looking for, currently, if you want to experience more games in 3D, what they would call true 3D, where somebody has taken the time to go in and painstakingly fix everything, I highly recommend you go and install the 3D Fix Manager. You can grab it off of the Helix website. It has 3D vision fixes. It has geo fixes. So let's say you don't have an RTX 2080 Ti. Not a problem. You got a current GPU? No problem. There are hundreds of geo fixes out there, hundreds of them, and they work on new cards, and they work on new cards on the newest drivers, so you don't have to worry about this. Although I am running an RTX 2080 Ti right now, I am running on the current 581.22 drivers that NVIDIA released, right? So if you have a RTX, I'd say 1080, actually even before that, GTX 1660 Ti, 680, it would be GTX 1680, the GTX 6060 Ti, the 1080, I'm not sure if they made a 1080 Ti, I'm going to look into that. I don't think they did. 2080 Super, TI, did I say LT? TI, all the way up to the current GPUs. The Geo drivers will work on them. So and they're very easy to install. As long as you have the game, you download the 3D Fix Manager. Okay. Actually, what I would recommend everyone to do, if you're just curious and you're thinking about grabbing the monitor, okay, say, I might pick up the Samsung Odyssey 3D. I might pick up the Acer Spatial Lab Predator monitor, Glasses 3 3D monitor. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself, guys. And you're really thinking about it. So, I'm not really sure if I want to do that because I don't know if my game will render correctly in 3D, right? Maybe Acer hasn't added it to its Ultra 3D, right? And when you want to play 3D, you want it to be rendered fully and correctly, because maybe it's a game like Warcraft and you're going to be playing for hours on end, okay? So I can tell you right now, the Cataclysm, all the way up to Cataclysm in retail works. It's just the shaders for the shadows are rendered incorrectly, so you have to play on low settings, but everything else works fine. Everything else works perfectly fine. So what you do is this: download the 3D Fix Manager. Okay, I said this in a previous video. Download the 3D Fix Manager. Go in to where after you install it, it'll say you don't have the right drivers, this and that, blah blah blah. Don't worry about any of that. All that it'll manually install if you want to do it. You're just checking to see if whether or not your game renders correctly in 3D, true 3D, right? No anomalies, no series of 2D objects rendered in 3D, right? Go up to the top left. You're going to see on the right side, you're going to see the drivers. Click on that. You'll see a drop-down menu. Go down to the Geo drivers. You'll see Geo-9, Geo-11. Click on Geo-11. Then on the top left, where it'll show all your games that you have currently installed on your system. It will detect them. And if it doesn't, you have a refresh on the bottom left hand, the little circle with the arrow. Click that and it'll find it. If it doesn't, you can go in and manually tell it what folders your games are, and then it'll detect it. So whatever games you have there, after selecting Geo-11 or Geo-9, I just select Geo-11 to be on the safe side for now. All those games that you have will render correctly in 3D. And so you click the game. So let's say it is World of Warcraft. You click on World of Warcraft. An image to the right will pop up. It'll probably show an actual picture of the game in side-by-side mode, and it'll have a list of all the things that were fixed in the game and all the known issues. Now sometimes it's not possible to fix things. So if it's not possible to fix them, they get removed. And I'll tell you, it's better that they get removed than there's an attempt to get fixed, because sometimes it just can't be fixed. And I'd rather it not be there than it be there and it being an eyesore in my, because I want a seamless, anomaly-free 3D experience. You find your game and read it. Read up on it. It'll tell you what's been fixed, what isn't. On the top right hand, it'll say Helix Blood. You click that, it'll go straight to the actual web page where other people are that have commented on your game that you're curious about whether or not if it'll render correctly in 3D. Read through all the comments, Go and you'll show all the new fixes. Sometimes there's updates, and sometimes the 3D Fix Manager doesn't have all the updates that are on the Helix site. So you might want to double check. And it's very easy to do these fixes. You literally just go to the Helix site, it'll say new 3D Fix, download it, and you just unpack it, and then copy and paste it into the exe file of where your game's main exe is, right? Where your exe file is in your game, copy and paste it, and that's it. You go to DXDM, double click it, and it'll have a notepad. It'll open up a notepad. It'll say side-by-side, tab. It'll say side-by-side, tab reverse, side-by-side reverse. If you're on a Samsung Odyssey 3D, go to where it says the tab, or actually I think it'll say Katagronga something underscore VR. Change that to side by side, click save, done. It'll output in side by side. It is super simple, very, very simple. So if you have a side by side 3D monitor, please do yourself a favor, download the 3D Fix Manager, go to select Geo drivers, select all games, and it'll show a list of all the games that are fixed using the Geo-11 drivers, and check to see if your game, if most of the games are, and there's a few hundred of them. There's a lot of them, and they're what I guess you would call true 3D. And see if your game's there, and if it is, maybe that might persuade you enough. If you're on the fence, you're not sure, like Warcraft looks great. Look at this game, look at this. This looks fantastic. This is an incredible experience. I mean, every time I show anybody this game in 3D, I'm telling you, their minds are blown. They can't believe it. Truly, honestly. And that's why I'm so enthusiastic and excited about getting this technology, my 3D TV. I got another one on the way. I'm working on that. Hopefully that'll be here next week. Still in the process of trying to figure out how I'm going to get here. But once that's done, that will probably be the TV that I put, out into the public's eye and be like, here, take a look at this. Watch this game. Play this game for 5 minutes in 3D, and people it is, I think, the most rewarding thing, sorry I said it out loud, the most rewarding thing that you can experience in your lifetime is when you can introduce something to a person that completely changes their entire perspective of something that they've enjoyed doing for years, maybe their whole life, maybe since they were like 5 playing Nintendo. And it changes everything for them. It opens up this whole new dimension. Literally opens up a whole new dimension. And their reaction is almost humbling and hopeful, because a lot of times their jaw drops. It's like, what? This is how it is? Are you serious? No way. Oh my God. And a lot of times when I first show them the games in 3D, I have to do the settings pretty low. I have to do them pretty low because people have been playing the games in 3D for a long time. We're used to very high depth, high separation. People who are novice, not so much. So I start very low and then I crank it up a little bit, and then finally I'll max it. The good thing with the Glasses free 3D monitors that are out there, you don't have to worry about that, which is great. There's no eye strain. There's no needing to get used to it because you don't even have glasses. So that's a huge bonus. I'm going to work really hard on trying to find a way to get that monitor. I think I'm happy with my RTX 2080 Ti. I think the next step for me is to get that monitor and then progress into having that a part of my display, my public display to people, so they can see what it's like without glasses. Right now, unfortunately, they're going to have to use the polarized glasses. I got like a bag full of them, and they're the little cheapy ones, but you know what? They do the job, and they work. This monitor is this TV is a great TV to show people what true 3D can look like. It really is. The ghosting, very little to almost none. The LG 47 LW 6800 3D TVs are incredible 3D TVs. Very little ghosting. And if there are any ghosting, you can tweak it to get rid of it. It's as simple as that. So right now, as you can see here, as you're watching the video, there is basically nothing. There's nothing here that is rendered incorrectly. Nothing's at the wrong depth. None of the shaders, the lighting, everything is literally perfect, and it looks fantastic. So this is going to be a great game to showcase and show them what they're considering is ultra 3D, right? And we're going to go to Tenaris here. I'm going to just show you this. And because it's going to be an experience that's going to be as authentic to the authentic to the technology as it can get, right? You want a true 3D experience. You don't want to have ghosting. You don't want to have overlapping. You don't want to have shaders and lighting all at the wrong depth. You really want to give it, the best to get them to be interested in the technology. So this TV, because I have another one of these coming, is going to be used in showing the public, say, hey, this is what you'll get. You can get this right now. Just all you need, if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, great. You can do the Geo drivers. If you have an AMD graphics card, great. You can do the Geo drivers. Hey, you got an older graphics card? No problem. 2080? Perfect. 3D Vision works perfect. Not only are you going to be able to play the 3D Vision fixes, which there are hundreds of, and again, it's true 3D. Somebody went in, took all that time painstakingly to go through every shader to find and isolate where each shadow and texture and where everything is, isolate it and fix it and render to be able to reposition it to give it the proper the XY positioning to be able to render in three-dimensional space correctly. And so there's hundreds of those. So great. You got an old 2080 Super, 1080. Don't throw the 1080 out. Don't throw the 1080 out. The 1080 is going to be able to play World of Warcraft in 3D and 4K just like this. It's going to look just like this. It's perfect. There's hundreds of 3D Vision fixes. So now you got hundreds of 3D Vision fixes, hundreds of Geo-11 fixes. Man, your game is bound to be on there. Plus, also now we have the VR to 3D conversion as well using the Unreal Engine. So now you got games like Hogwarts Legacy. People are using Vorpex and a custom version of Vorpex, I guess, to render their games in 3D space, and people are able to see their hands and stuff move around, and looks fantastic. Looks incredible, right? Resident Evil is another one. I just saw that there was a post for The Last of Us. Imagine playing The Last of Us, the original Last of Us, in true 3D. It's a great time now. I'm feeling excited again for the technology. I'm so happy that I got this graphics card. I can now be able to render my games in true 4K and be able to create good content, high quality content. Maybe the limiting factor in my videos is always going to be me. Okay, not the videos, me and my talking and my rambling, but I'm just really passionate about this technology. I've sort of grown along with it, in my life personally. When 3D Vision first came out so long ago, was it 2012, 2013, something like that? It was a long time ago. The technology has progressed and grown, and I have progressed and grown. Me as a person has progressed and grown along with it. The person that I was 10 years ago is very different than the person I am now. And so I'm proud of who I've become, and I'm proud of where the technology has come. I feel like things are just getting better, right? Things are moving and progressing in the right direction. And I think we all have a lot to be hopeful for and excited for. Stay positive. I know right now some of the 2D to 3D stuff is a little bit janky. I get it. You want to show the best 3D content because you really want people to be like, oh my God, this is so amazing, because it is amazing. And I love it too. And like everybody that I show these videos to that can see it in 3D, they love it too. The best way to get this content in people's faces is to get the monitor and the hardware in front of their faces, right? So for me, I'm going to be setting up a booth. I don't care if I have to do it on the street. As long as I have a power outlet, I am going to be perfect. Even if I have to find a way, I don't want to do this. I would prefer to have internet. If I don't have internet, worst case scenario, I might not be able to show World of Warcraft. Not with the Blizzard servers. I may have to somehow find a way to run my own server, so that way just purely for the intent of showing people the game world and what it looks like in 3D. And look at this, guys. Right? Look at that. That's just, this is beautiful. I know I say that a lot, but really it is. It's, we're literally adding another dimension, right? And we're jumping in to the game. We're blurring the lines between the two worlds, right? Stepping into the looking glass, right? We're Alice stepping into the looking glass, right? Another world type of deal. I'm really thankful for Samsung and Acer to be the front runners in this. They were originally, so many years ago. And BenQ as well. BenQ did it also. I keep forgetting. I have a BenQ 3 monitor here as well. There's a few other ones. Was it Viso? Viso, I think they also did that. But, 10 years later, Samsung's back at it again. And they didn't just make a glasses-free 3D monitor. They made an awesome glasses-free 3D monitor. They made a true 4K, 65 hertz, like 1 millisecond glasses-free 3D monitor, and that is just awesome. That is awesome. They didn't just go halfway; they went all the way in. I think they believed in the technology and the future of gaming. Clearly, Acer does as well. So it's a good time to be a 3D gamer. It's good to come back again and start making content. So, anyways, guys, I just wanted to show you what the difference between what it means when a shader's not corrected and then when it is corrected. When you're playing games in 2D to 3D conversion, you're not going to see the shaders at different depths, okay? Because the 2D to 3D conversion will sort of isolate the shader in the frame buffer, and it will kind of automatically reposition where it should be from your character, where it thinks it should be. And so for the most part, it does do a decent job, but there's going to be some depth issues, and that's essentially the difference, right? And so when it comes to 2D to 3D conversion, like I was saying before, okay, you see how this is at screen depth. See where the point of this wood plank is here, the very tip of it. You can see how that's just touching the screen depth, and as you go further down, it's going further into the screen. The 2D to 3D conversion typically tries to attempt to do the same thing, but it'll do things in layers, right? And so it'll kind of sort of do the things. That's why it's not perfect yet. It is just a work in progress, and it's just going to get better and better and better. Yeah, guys, go check out my videos at GFC 303. If you have the Samsung Odyssey 3D, I do have a few side-by-side videos that I put up recently. I'm going to start putting up more side-by-side videos. I also I'd like to mention as well, the reason why Tab was popular was because people that liked the passive 3D and liked to wear the glasses that you got at the movie theaters when you watch 3D movies there, people who like that, unfortunately, in order to display the 3D image, the resolution would have to be halved. Now, like I mentioned before, in tab mode, you would only lose about 15% of the overall picture quality, right? So you would be 90 or 85% 4K image, as in for side by side, you would lose a lot more because your horizontal resolution is 1920. So when you cut that in half and side by side, you lose 960 lines of resolution, right? Even though you still maintain your vertical at 1080p, right? You're losing far more. So when you go to tab, right, it's 1920 in horizontal and only 540 vertical, right? So you're losing far less actual visual space. So they decided to go with the passive 3D technology, and it's great. but unfortunately you do lose portion, especially in side-by-side mode when you're using passive technology, especially with older games as well, like games like World of Warcraft, because it's limited pipelines, and so it can only do so much. So with tab really not being a thing anymore, Samsung and Acer has now standardized side by side. So you're going to get two modes, 2D to 3D conversion and side by side, which is great, which is fantastic, because once we have a direction where everyone's going to be going in, we don't need to worry about tab. We don't need to worry about tab reversed, side by side reversed, VR, none of that. It could just be side by side or 2D to 3D conversion, right? And I think that's another very smart move. I kind of wish at the very beginning it was just side by side. I think the technology would have progressed a little bit further from where it was originally. There wouldn't have been tab or tab reversed or any of that stuff. And having to, even though tab technically it gives you a superior picture quality. It gives you a superior picture quality. You're 85%. Of what 4K of a 4K image, as opposed to half, side by side, which is reduced to, you're getting about 65% of the original 4K image. That's why when you're watching this video right here, and I upload it to YouTube, it's actually going to be in 1920 by 1080p, even though it is in 4K, right? It's not in 4K. Oh no, it is in 4K. Sorry, it is in 4K. My WTF config file. It is in 4K. I was like, what the heck? What the hell's going on? No, but it is. It's in 4K. So even though it's in 4K, but because it's in side by side, and because the technology is a passive 3D, you're losing a lot of visual fidelity, if you want to call it that, visual space. So the tab allowed you to have almost full 4K. But now that we're getting away from that and we're going down the road of side by side, and not, and the thing is, there's side by side, but there's side by side cross-eyed mode, right? So people who don't have 3D vision TVs or 3D TVs or 3D monitors, if you saw a side by side video, the old trick was to cross your eyes when you're looking. I'm not saying to do that. I'm not telling everyone to cross your eyes to do that, but that's what the old trick was. So that's why you would have 3D videos and they would say cross-eyed mode. So you cross your eyes and you could see it in 3D type of deal, right? And that was the cheapy fast way to see what a game looked like in 3D. But now we don't have side-by-side cross-eye. We don't have tab reversed. None of that. It's all gone. It's just side-by-side, and that's a very smart move. We all have a direction that it's pointing in, and that's where we're going to go, and I think we should stick with that. Okay, guys, on that note, keep up the good work. Keep fighting the good fight for 3D. Please comment, subscribe to my channel. I'm always down to talk about 3D. I'm a huge 3D enthusiast. I've been in the game a long time. Not as long as like everyone, a lot of other people have. There's people who have been, into the 3D game for a really, really long time, even before 3D vision was around. Actually, used to be you could even play 3D games on your old CRT monitors because they could go up to 110 hertz. But anyways, I digress. That was a long time ago. Okay, guys, take care. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.